Okay, my first question is just what pronouns do you use?
He, she.
Oh, I just he, like he, him, I guess.
He, him.
I don't use pronouns.
How would you feel if somebody referred to as a she?
I wouldn't like it.
So you might have like a preference of somehow.
Yes, I am he, him.
Right,
There we
yeah.
go. There we go.
Okay.
She, her.
I use he, him.
He, him.
What about you?
He, him.
Okay, cool. What's funny?
I just
No, I'm just curious. Okay, it's a funny question. Gotcha.
he.
I really don't even know him, but I'm out. He, him, I think.
He, him.
I don't really use pronouns, but I guess I would say he, him.
Okay.
I use a he, him.
She.
He, him.
Just the boy.
Okay.
Just the normal ones, he.
He, him.
He, him.
My next question for you is: would you consider yourself to be a feminist?
I don't know, really.
Okay, talk to me about it.
I side with both sides. Like, there's some things that women should have the right to control, and there are other things that were just like, everybody should have the right to control that.
I mean, yeah, I would guess so. It's kind of a broad spectrum,
sure.
I think. So, like, there are some people who say feminists and they're like really intense about it in a way that's kind of like concerning, where it's like, nah, we hate men too. And it's like, that's not really what it's about as far as I know, it's just making sure everyone is equal and everyone's on a fair playing field and all that. So, yeah, I would say so.
Would you consider yourself to be a feminist?
What do you mean by that?
A feminist is typically somebody who like pushes for equal and equitable standards amongst men, women.
I believe in equal rights. I believe in both sides having equal opportunity to pursue what they want.
Okay, got you. Do you support like the idea of like changing systems so that we can have them be more representative and equal and like fair?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to an extent, like,
Okay.
I don't really agree with the whole, like, they should get more and stuff. I think everybody should be equal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's person, just treat them everybody equal.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves equal rights and stuff like that, so, yeah.
My next question for you is: would you consider yourself to be more pro-choice or pro-life?
Pro-choice.
Okay. Talk to me about it. Why pro-choice?
I believe that being able to make that choice is, it's just really important.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who uses birth control and all that,
sure.
it's just like daily things that should not be taken away.
To be honest, it don't matter to me, to be honest.
Okay.
I just be going with the flow.
Okay.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
what it is.
Okay. Word.
I'd say I'm more pro-life.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to me about it. Why pro-life?
Well, I'm religious, so I
Yeah.
believe at conception is when life begins.
Okay.
Oh, pro-choice.
Okay. Well, talk to me about that, if you don't mind. Like, why pro-choice? No pressure, just your thoughts. Yeah.
I don't know. I just believe that it's woman's right to choose what she does with her body. I mean, that's just simple enough.
Do y'all support the right of people to transition genders?
I mean, I don't really care. It's not my business,
Yeah.
Let people be people,
What about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I'm not going to judge you, so that's how I feel.
Would y'all respect their pronouns if they gave you pronouns that you might have not assumed for them? Like if they said their pronouns were different, would you respect them? You call them their pronouns?
I would call them the pronouns. I'm not going to make fun of them or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you tell me your pronouns, I'll use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
I mean, yeah, that's cool, just do you.
Yeah. Do you feel like if somebody presented you with different pronouns that they might use, that you would use the ones that they want you to?
Yeah, it's cool.
I think, it's cool. They can do what they want, yeah.
I say yeah.
Yeah. If somebody used, an alternative pronoun, right? Would you respect the pronoun that with which they're trying to identify with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you have to. It's not harming me, so.
Right.
If they're adults, yeah.
If they're adults.
Yeah.
Okay. Why not if they're children?
I just think there's a lot of decisions that children aren't ready to make, and that's one that affects you in a big way for the rest of your life. So, if kids can't drink or vote, they probably shouldn't do that.
Why do you feel like, so if 98% of children who transition never or maintain and are happy about that transition for the rest of their life, And there's far greater amount of people that are unhappy about getting baptized when they're children.
Yeah.
Why should we baptize children but not allow children to transition if they're much more happy and content with that decision?
Well, I think because baptism is easier to undo than like a medical transition, like actually having, not just saying you're transgender, but actually having the surgery, that's harder to undo than baptism.
What about so with the idea of, it's just similar, just another question for you, right? Is, it takes years to get to the point of doing any type of physical medical transition. There's, gender affirming care. There's other things related to it. Do you support those things for kids who are trans?
You mean like maybe therapy or something?
Yeah, like hormone therapy, or there's even puberty blockers or different other things, or even therapy. There's a lot of different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't support puberty blockers, but I'd support therapy, that's not something that will physically affect you the rest of your life. So to me, if you want to go for that, that's fair game.
Do you support marriage equality or gay marriage?
Yeah.
Good. A lot of there's states.
I'm for everybody doing their own thing. Like, everybody does their own thing.
Yeah, facts.
No stigmatism against anybody. No.
I believe you have the right to love anyone you want.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Okay, good. I only ask because people are trying to repeal it, like in Idaho, other states.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of my friends are gay or trans or everything else on the list, and I love them dearly. I want them to be happy and be able to live the life they want to live. So
Yeah, for sure. I think anybody should be able to love whoever they want. I'm wearing believer shirts, so I'm a follower in Jesus and everything. I always preach that. So I know there's some things where they say you can't go after the same marriage and stuff, or same sex, or you shouldn't marry them. And I wouldn't be a part of the people that try to shut that down, I guess. I just say, me personally, I wouldn't really agree with that in the way that I live my life. But, I wish everybody lived that way, but everybody's going to make the decision they want to make. So definitely wouldn't try to shut that down or anything.
Yeah. In the last 10 years, the Latino population in America has grown by 18.3%. What percentage increase do you think Latin people killed by the police has gone up? And it's okay if you don't know. Like I said, this is really educational.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'd have no idea.
Yeah,
I could throw a number out there, but it'd be
yeah.
not even an inference. It's not even an educated guess. It'd just be a random guess.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So while the Latino population grew by 18.3%, they were killed 62% increase more than they had been previously.
Huh.
So a large increase.
Yeah.
Why do you think the police have been killing Latino people even more than before? What's going on? What do you think?
I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, but it seems like if they're coming here and then they're getting killed more, maybe they don't want them here. It's my only guess. But for what reason that might be, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Probably quite a bit. The American government spends quite a bit on police, on our police forces when they're super militarized. So probably quite a bit.
Yeah, no, you're correct. In that same time period where Latin people increased their population by 18.3%, the victims by police grew by 61%. Wow. Right. Why do you think there's such a large increase? What do you think is going on?
I couldn't really place my finger on it. Probably growing poverty. Prices have gone up. Things are more expensive now, and people have been forced into more poverty. I can't really think of the words right now, but you get what I'm going for, though. It's been hard a lot for a lot of people. A lot of people just lost their jobs with the pandemic and everything, and people are still recovering from that. Crime stems from poverty, so I think it comes from that.
I'd say 6%.
Okay. Yeah, so Latin people over the last 10 years actually have had an increase of being killed by the police by 61%. Why do you think that is?
Latin as in Mexicans?
Latino, every country that encompasses a Latin person, which would be from Mexico down to Argentina, Brazil, all of that is included.
And that's in all the United States?
Yes, it is.
Jeez.
Yeah, crazy, right? 3 times more than their population increase, which is, there has to be something happening.
I don't know. I'd have to say my only guess would be, and they're getting caught by the police more or killed by the police? I'd have to say the border maybe, and there's more drugs coming in, so they got to deal with them, and it's dangerous.
Do you feel like any of it might have to do due to like racism by the police leading to an increase in murder or kills?
It definitely could. I mean, I'm not a cop, and so I wouldn't know, but I'm sure if there's racism against black people with cops, there's racism against Mexicans.
Yeah. The assumption of guilt placed on black and brown people by the police is anti-American, as our whole judicial system is based on the idea innocent until proven guilty, but not if there's a police officer with a gun in front of you, is not. Do you think that white privilege exists?
Yes.
Talk to me about that, if you don't mind.
I've definitely seen it, and I've experienced it with some of my friends at least, where it's little things that are just like, it's a little unfair.
Yeah.
Even then, it just adds on. But it does really exist.
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation for it.
I guess in some cases, but like I said, I really just don't be paying attention to that. Just go by my life. Just try to feel what I feel, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. In certain ways, I think so.
Yeah.
I couldn't give you a good example of that, but I do think it's just people's natural. I think there is a systemic problem, but I couldn't give you a real example of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
To a degree, I guess so.
Okay, talk to me about kind of your thoughts on it.
I'm no expert or nothing. I just know that historically, white people kind of control stuff and try to keep other people down. I don't know, that's my thought.
Yeah. One of Donald Trump's, he just signed this into executive order to end birthright citizenship, which means if you're born in America, then you're an American citizen.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that idea?
I think it's not cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think being born a U.S. citizen is the right way and how things should be.
Yeah, how it's always been almost.
I don't think you have to earn your right to live here.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think you have to earn anything.
Yeah, okay.
Nah. Me personally, no. If you're born on the soil,
Yeah.
you could be an American citizen.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I would say.
Nah, I believe if you're born here, yeah, you're a citizen.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like nothing can change that.
Yeah.
Well, I actually support it because one of the reasons he signed it was because the point of it is that if your parent comes here illegally, then you don't get to claim citizenship, which I know affects a lot of people, but I feel like that's the way it should be. Even though right now that's going to be a hard thing to implement and it's going to affect a lot of people, I do think that's how it should be and should have been for a long time. If your parent commits a crime, that doesn't necessarily mean you get to automatically claim citizenship.
So, were you born in America?
I was, yeah.
So how would you feel not being an American citizen?
Well, my parents were here legal. My parents were born in America, and my grandma came here legally as an immigrant from the Philippines. So she did it the right way. So I wouldn't have to worry about it. I know it can create a hard situation, and I understand that, but I think we still have to do what's right.
If the immigration system takes on average like 15 years to become a citizen, it costs an insane amount of money, and it is largely ineffective. How can there be a right way for a system that's broken?
Well, that's exactly the problem. Is I think we need to reform immigration so then we can offer those legal pathways.
So why would we then do things like ending birthright citizenship or mass deportation rather than actually fixing the system and not playing with these weird symptoms that actually don't matter?
Well, because you initially have to enforce what laws we already have. That's the first priority, and then
even if they're bad laws.
Well, I don't think a lot of them. I think that when you're talking about immigration, there's illegal, then there's legal. Two different subjects. Illegal immigration, that should just be out of the question. We need to enforce those laws. But then after that, after we figure out how to enforce those, we need to work on improving the legal immigration system so that people can have that option and aren't motivated to commit crimes and come here illegally.
If people that come here legally could come here legally, why would they still come here illegally if the system actually worked for them? You know what I'm saying? If it was accessible enough for it to be easy to do it the quote unquote right way, if they come here illegally, that means they can't come here legally. So what's the problem here?
They can. It does take a long time. It needs, to be reformed, but it is easier to come here legally, but that doesn't mean it's right. The point of legal immigration is to say, all right, here's a process. Here's where we make sure that you're actually who you say you are, that you're going to contribute, that you're going to help, that you can pass the citizenship test, things like that. When coming here illegally, you can just walk on in, which, yeah, that's easier, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. There should still be, while we need reform in immigration, we don't need it to take 15 years, there should still be a process where you have to apply, you have to prove that you are who you say you are, making sure we don't have like bad people coming in.
Do you think it's hypocritical for white Americans, mostly white men like Donald Trump, to criminalize immigration now in such a way, despite white people just basically walking into America without any?
You mean like in the past?
Yeah, I mean when they colonized America, or even in the 1920s, in the early 1900s, when you could literally just come into an island, put your name on a form, and you're in America. Is that not hypocritical to do when that was the base of our country? So now when more brown people are coming, that we switch, that we want to enforce this different thing?
So I think making it a race thing is that's not a fair argument, because there's a lot of people who come from Africa who do it the legal way. A ton of people who come from Asia who do it the legal way.
Yeah, because they have wealth.
But yeah, and it's also, a lot of the white people who came like in the 20s and 30s, that was a legal way. Like Ellis Island was a legal port of entry. They sought asylum.
You see my problem though? Why was the legal way then so easy, but it's so difficult? Is that not hypocritical to enforce a much more difficult way on people now than we did then? Because the only immigrants that could do that then were white.
Well, it wasn't all white, but the problem is now we have so many more. There's such a mass migration, and to me, the people back then were willing to assimilate, which if you're wanting to come to America, that's awesome. Like, I appreciate people wanting to come to America and seek a better life, but then you also have to be willing to follow our laws, our customs, our culture. Just how, like, if I moved to another country, I would say I probably need to abide by their laws, their customs, things like that. And so I think the problem is just that we have a mass immigration that our system hasn't been set up to deal with.
White families in America have an average wealth of $284,000. What do you think the average wealth of a Latino family is?
In America?
Yes.
I would say 50,000.
That's actually a really good guess. Yeah, it's about 62,000. Why do you think there's such a large disparity between average wealth in white family versus Latino family?
Well, in America, same thing when you're comparing African Americans. White people have just been here for so long and they're established. And then Latinos, they come in and they have to, copy what, or, figure out what they want to do from the scratch, basically. Whereas white people have had all this time and all this family that's built stuff, and I'd have to say that would be the reason.
The average white family's wealth in America is $284,000. What do you think the average Latin family's wealth is?
150 maybe, or 200, something like that.
Yeah. It's actually $62,000.
Wow.
Why do you think there's such a large disparity between families, between average family wealth?
It comes back to systemic racism. Latino families get hired less. They have less opportunities. I as a white man, am privileged and have an easier time. Also, generational wealth is a big part of that. A lot of the top 1% of people are white, and that really changes the averages. And then a lot of that too is that people don't have as many job opportunities. People don't have as many opportunities in general if they're not white, and that goes into that.
I mean, it's hard to really just explain,
No,
but
right.
I mean, some people had a head start in this how this goes, and I mean, there's just things that some people get opportunities that other people don't.
Yep.
But I couldn't explain
in
depth. But I mean,
Yeah, there's been a lot of different things. Just so you know, for instance, when white families in the 1940s, they all basically got these super cheap house loans, while black and brown families were not allowed to have them. So they forced us into government housing.
Yeah.
So they had houses for $5,000, where black and brown people were not allowed to. So that's one evidence, or another thing called redlining, things that you can look up. Okay, final question for you. Is in this last presidential election, if you did vote, who did you vote for?
Well, I didn't get the chance to vote.
Okay, true.
But I was gonna vote for Kamala Harris, and then when I found out like the majority reason of why people voted for Donald Trump, I was like, it makes sense for the time being. But what about longevity? Yeah.
Okay.
I voted for Kamala.
Okay, cool. One more question. Okay, it's similar. It's similar to this idea though. Is Donald Trump started massive mass deportation rates like today/yesterday. How do you feel about that idea?
As someone who comes from a border city, it's really upsetting, especially with a lot of the people I grew up with who are on visas or just they come to visit every once in a while. It's tough to see that stuff happen firsthand. And it's important that if we explain America as a melting pot, that we should keep it that way and we should give each other the chances to succeed.
If I'm being honest, I probably would have voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Just because that aligns more with like my financial situation and my family and things like that. But definitely not an extremist. I think on either side of politics, you're extreme. You're just not in the not in the norm, you know. And I think that the whole political party thing is just a way to divide us all. You know, we need to come together because at the end of the day, we're all human, right? We all got the same heart, so just got to see each other that way.
One more question.
Yeah.
So and just tell me kind of your thoughts. You know, as someone who might agree more with Trump, you know, Trump is starting mass deportation rates. They're doing ICE raids in hospitals and schools. How do you feel about that idea of mass deportation?
Yeah, man, I don't know. That's one of the topics where I'm like, I would say that I would vote for him and stuff, but that's another thing where it's like, they're still people, man. You know, like they still have family. They're still out there, same as us. You know what I mean? And I think that's more of a in-depth conversation, I guess I would say, because some people make the argument where it's like, oh, but you got to do it legally, and I would agree, but then to send them back to a place where they might not be safe, how can you kind of do that, you know? So and that's I've lived here since I was 5, so I have a bunch of friends and stuff that are came from Mexico and stuff like that, so I definitely see both sides. Me personally, I stay out of that type of stuff, you know, because there ain't nothing I'm gonna do to change that, you know. I'm just a dude here, so but yeah, I mean, my heart goes out to them. I pray for them and stuff, so this is one of those things where it's like, that's just higher up, man, you know?
Kamala Harris.
Okay, true. What was the number one reason for voting for her?
I think she's way more competent than Trump is, and I just don't agree with him at all about a lot of different things.
Well, I mean, I really would have rather voted third party just because that's what I wanted to vote, but I did vote for
Kamala Harris?
yes. Sorry, I'm bad with my brain's not working as it should.
I wouldn't even voted for either.
Okay.
But I couldn't vote this year because I didn't get my registration stuff for that. So
Okay.
But I wouldn't even vote for neither.
Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior.
You voted for Jesus Christ?
I didn't vote.
Okay,
Nah,
cool.
I should have, but I'm from Houston.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I had to get registered at where I'm at currently.
Yeah.
I tried, and they told me I'd have to drive to Houston. So
Yeah.
I mean, just procrastination. I should do a better job of that. But
All right. They made it much more difficult here in Texas for people to register too.
I voted for Kamala.
Okay. And as a Kamala voter, right, now looking is Donald Trump, one of his main policies is mass deportation. And he actually started ICE raids in hospitals and schools today. How do you feel about this idea of mass deportation?
I don't like it at all. I think it's a bad idea to deport that many people. Because I feel like there's like, you know, if they contribute to our economy and all that, you know, like essential workers and stuff that do jobs other people don't. You know, businesses that help businesses and all that. And I think it would cost a whole lot to actually do that whole deportation. So yeah, I think it's bad.
I voted Kamala. It's better than, in my opinion, it's better than Trump. And then it's something, you know. I understand that a lot of people didn't vote for her because of her positions on Palestine, but I was voting harm reduction, and Trump is just he's gonna do worse. That's just my opinion. I understand the position that if you don't want to vote for her because you're trying to show the Democratic Party that it's not just a guaranteed vote, but you know, it's hard to know what to do.
I didn't vote this year, so yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I didn't vote either.
Okay. Donald Trump, he one of his main policies is mass deportation. He started ICE raids across the country today in hospitals and schools. How do y'all feel about this idea of mass deportation?
I go either way on it because obviously some people are here for crime, you know what I mean? But some people are here just for a better opportunity. So I'm 50-50. I wouldn't say I'm either side because I don't know like the full stories and stuff.
I don't know. I would say I'm kind of mixed on it too. I mean, like there's a lot of people that are here, like they have families here and stuff. And I mean, they're just trying to live a better life. But also on the other hand, you see like stuff on the news, stuff like that. But a lot of these immigrants like committing these crimes and all that type of stuff. So I feel like it's hard for me to say. Like I'm kind of in the middle and on the fence. Like I can kind of see both sides. But yeah, it's just harder for me to like choose.
I voted for Trump.
Okay. And just today, actually 2 questions, sorry, if that's good, just follow up. What's the number one reason you voted for him? Like number one policy maybe?
Job opportunities. My family, we're big in the oil field industry, and with that getting shut down, I mean, it really does affect a lot of people's lives. Inflation, I mean, you just see gas prices go up and everything. Even with groceries, I mean, shoot, I'm a college student. It's like, it's expensive to even buy groceries for me, but that, and I like the fair opportunity for Americans he gives. He wants all of Americans to be hardworking class and make the economy better.
Okay. He just today, one of his main policies was mass deportation. Today he started doing ICE raids in hospitals and schools in different cities across America. How do you feel about his idea of mass deportation?
So there's a right way of doing it. My dad was a citizen in Tijuana, and he did it the right way. He got his citizenship the right way. He went through a process, and I understand there's better opportunities in America, but I mean, there is a right way of doing stuff, and I don't agree with it. I mean, there's other ways to do it, but coming from a Mexican family, I had my dad do it the right way coming into America. So, I mean, it's pick and choose on that, because there is good opportunities because everybody has their own story, but we can't just let cartels come in.
Do you feel like our immigration system though is accessible for people to do it the quote unquote right way?
Yeah, well,
like it takes on on an average of 15 years is how long it takes to be a citizen.
Well,
is
for
that
sure.
how's that fair? How's that accessible to people?
It's the same thing if I were to go to another country. I bet it's not as fast as quick.
Why is it so difficult to become an American citizen? What's the point?
Well, that's been something forever, though. I mean,
well, back in the day, in the 1920s, when all white immigrants came here illegally, they just walked through a door, put a name on a paper, and now they're the president of our United States.
No, that's not how that works.
That's literally how the immigration system works in Staten Island. They would walk in, sign a form, and they're citizens. So why is it so difficult for, especially brown and black immigrants? And why is there such a focus on it?
I feel like it's really not, because I mean, you look at people, there's a lot of U.S. citizens that are multi-race, different ethnicities coming through the country. So I don't think it's a hard process. I think because you just got to do what's right. I mean, if that's by the law, do it by the law.
Is the law always right though?
That's why we have congressmen. That's why we have senators. That's why we have all those to make those decisions for us, and that's why we vote. So.
Okay. Cool. Hey, appreciate you, buddy. Of course.
I mean, I'm not. I just don't. I don't really have a political bias or anything. I try to stay neutral on most stuff.
Okay.
I was able to vote, so I just didn't really look much into either or side.
Got you. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't vote this year. I'm not really into politics.
Yeah. Another one of Donald Trump's main policies is mass deportation. He's doing ICE raids already in hospitals and schools across the country. How do y'all feel about the idea of mass deportation? How do y'all think about that?
Honestly, I don't really it's hard because I see both sides to it, but I don't have an opinion. I try to stay away from politics and stuff.
I mean, there's definitely two sides to it, trying to live in America and also earning your right to live, or being here and a citizen. Mass deportation, I think, is an excessive way of doing things. I feel like people need to be a citizen if they want to live here and work here, but I don't think mass deportation is the right way to go about things.
Right.
I think, I don't know, I don't obviously have an idea about most of that stuff, but I think mass deportation is a little much.
Probably Trump, just because they didn't want Biden back in there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And is that the one from 2 months ago?
The current.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure. One of Donald Trump's main policies has been mass deportation.
Yeah.
He actually started ICE raids and mass deportation this morning. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I I don't like it at first. Like separating like children from their families and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not good, but there's a lot of circumstantial stuff that needs to happen. Like I'm all for probably like getting rid of like sending people back that like are here illegally, but there has to be like a different way around it besides just like sending everybody away just like all at once, like if they don't have like any sort of documentation or anything. There should be like more like steps within the process instead of just like sending them away just like that.
Do you feel like our immigration system is fair? Like it gives people.
I don't have information on our immigration system, low key, so I don't really know. Yeah.
Donald Trump has been in office for 2 days, and I've seen the empowerment that people feel to openly hate because he openly hates. Donald Trump pushes this idea that if you're not white, straight, and wealthy, then you're a problem. Therefore, his followers believe the same thing. People are and are going to be more open and willing to hate proudly than ever before because our president hates openly and proudly more than ever before. For some reason, it's not cool to try to include people. It's not cool to defend the marginalized populations. It's not cool to be inclusive. It's cool to spew hatred. It's cool to say trans people shouldn't exist. It's cool to say police violence doesn't affect black people. But it's not cool. It's ignorant. It's hateful. And the problem is when you have a president in office who openly calls black and brown countries shithole countries, rapists, and murderers, you get people in America who not only believe the same thing, but are willing to yell the same thing right in your face. And that's hatred. And at this stop, at UTSA, Gen Z, A Generation at War, you'll see his followers empowered to spew hatred just like him. And we're only 2 days into his presidency. And that's worrisome.
I voted for Trump.
Okay. And what was the number one policy for voting for Trump?
The border, and I liked the gender. He did that yesterday.
You liked
saying that there was only 2 genders. Yeah.
Even though that's scientifically incorrect?
How is it scientifically incorrect?
Have you ever heard of the term intersex?
Intersex.
It is a third sex that exists in birth with babies. It means that you do not identify as either a male or female fully, that you have a mix of either chromosomes, genitalia, or even like or other things. So why should he? So then, why would he do it if it's scientifically incorrect? What point does that prove?
Do you know? As I don't know, how many people that happens to when they're
There's more intersex people than there are redheads in the United States.
And it's just what they think they are?
No, scientifically, biologically.
I've never heard of that, so I'd have to read up on that.
Yeah, you should. It's good. Because so if say it's true, right? Say you research it is true. Why say there's 2 genders if scientifically that's incorrect?
I think when he was doing it, he didn't really think about, what were they called? Intersex people.
But shouldn't he? If as the president, shouldn't he have the knowledge, the know-how to not exclude more people than there are redheads in America?
Well, at the same time, there's the intersex people, and then there's the people who aren't intersex and they want to say that
trans
they're
people.
Trans people.
Yes.
So maybe I'd ask an intersex person if they find it, what's the word? If they find it weird that other people are trying to say they're this when they're not scientifically that, you know?
Right. Well, that's the difference between gender and sex. There's sex, which is your biological, what you're born with biologically. Then there's gender, which is the identity that we take on as people. I was biologically born a male, and I also identify as a gender man. Oftentimes they're correlated, but oftentimes they're not correlated. So most intersex people I have met do not feel that way. They feel very open to the idea of gender fluidity. But so you mentioned trans people. Why do you have a problem with people transitioning genders?
I think just the at young ages, and especially in the media, we'll see a lot of books where it's like showing people or showing kids that it's okay to be transgender.
Why is it not okay?
Well, I'm not saying it's not okay. It's not okay for a little kid to think it's okay to want to change when they're too young to even realize what a man and woman is supposed to be.
So don't you think it would be healthy, in a healthy society, we would teach people about the reality of the existence of different groups of people, including trans people, especially considering that they are victims of a lot of hate crimes and hatred in general. So what's the problem with letting them know that trans people exist, and why push two genders if that's really to perpetuate hate and the exclusion of trans people? Because
Well,
what other purpose does it accomplish besides their exclusion?
I'm blanking, but from personal belief, I don't think children are, smart enough to understand if they should switch or not switch, so they shouldn't have that option at all.
Okay.
And also in the prisons
Do you feel
with
like they might not be able to understand the idea of sexuality?
Sure.
Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? Like, you feel like maybe they can't understand it? That's why they shouldn't be exposed to it?
Yeah.
So
I'd say that.
okay. Have you ever seen those like funny shirts, babies wear of like, oh, like my mom's my first girlfriend or something? Have you ever seen those? Or like, oh, like that girl, like I'm like, a sweetheart boy, or like future husband or whatever. There's a lot of
I'm
those.
sure, yeah, something like that. Yeah, I've probably seen it.
Wouldn't that like perpetuate the same idea of pushing sexuality and heteronormativity on kids as the same idea of trans? Because then they might marry a different sex. Is that not the same?
It's kind of the same, but
Like identically the same.
yeah. I don't know.
If
It's a
that's the
tough
principle-
question.
If that's the principle that idea follows, I think we should hold that principle in all things, or say that's not the principle and get to the root of why you really think it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking the questions. If the principle is not to expose children to things that they should not be exposed to at a young age, but we do, on the opposite sense, what's the real reason we don't want kids learning about trans people?
It's probably just a new thing, and obviously it's new to our parents, and parents are gonna pass down what they think. But I don't think it's going anywhere, the transgenders. I think it's gonna keep growing.
Yeah, they've been here for all of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
They're-
the time, since the beginning of history.
Yeah. It's gonna be just like African Americans, basically. They're gonna have to just preserve and fight through it, adversity.
But shouldn't we fight to support, not force them to fight through adversity? That's kind of a crazy thing to say. Like, black people, we fought through like literal hell to get here.
Yeah.
And to get equality. So why would we force somebody else to fight through adversity? For what purpose? Like, for their existence? To live like freely? Like, not get hate crimes? Not to have the president say like they don't exist? Like, what is that? What unity? What purpose does that accomplish besides exclusion and hate? That's my real question. Is like, why?
Well, I'll be truthful. I don't know if it's hate, but if I see like a transgender dude who's just like, we've all seen a transgender dude or woman who just looks nasty or just like,
I've
a lot
seen a lot
of them
of-
are on drugs, like the ones that I'm talking about.
Have you ever seen a lot of cis heterosexual people are on drugs and they look nasty? What if I
Yeah.
said you look nasty?
I know what you mean.
Because a lot of trans people I've seen look amazing.
Yeah, but I think that's the main thing I have a problem with is just
they look nasty?
Not all of them. The ones who do and like they just put a bad name for all the other ones.
That is hate. That's hatred. You just told me that trans people look nasty, which is why you don't like them.
I said some of them.
Right.
And that's
Some white people look nasty.
Yeah.
You look nasty. How do you feel?
Well,
Not good, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
imagine if I walked down the street and saying I don't like white people because they look nasty. That's hatred. That's hatred. So why? Like that I don't get it. Like I have friends who are trans. Like, right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might have people that are trans in your life. What do you have a trans kid? And they hear you say some of them are nasty.
I think that you can't disagree with me that some transsexuals
Just because you
are-
don't transgender people, just because you're not attracted to them doesn't mean they look nasty. Are you attracted to men?
No.
You might think men look nasty, but I don't hear you walking around and say some men are nasty. I think you look nasty. You don't hear me coming up to you saying you look nasty. You see, that's hatred. Brother, that's not okay, man. What's going on?
Hey, I'll stick by it.
Oh my God.
I've seen transsexuals that
you're not attracted to. Maybe you need to change your language because the language is hateful. It's not good language. Why would you? Well, you'll see the interview I just recorded. Honestly, it might be the craziest interview I've ever done in my life. Like, genuinely. I've never broken somebody's point down so badly to show them that it was hatred for the point that they knew that what they're saying is not principled, it's hatred. And they said they stand by it, that they're just happy to be hatred. I'm shivering because it's fucking cold out here. But I'm just saying, like, when you watch this video, I'll post this video. Because I hope you know my demeanor. Like, my demeanor is mad, but also sad. Sad at the reality that there are people in our country who just hate trans people just because they're trans, because they think they look nasty. That's what he said. That's the words, that they look nasty. But it's like, that's the problem with having a person in office who spews hate. You have people who are okay, and it's commonplace to say something very hateful because our president says stuff that's hateful. Trans people have the right to exist. I love trans people. Trans people are my friends. And I'm gonna be honest with you. If you don't fuck with trans people and you say some fuck shit about trans people, I don't fuck with you. That's reality. And if you got a problem with it, I always stood on business. So. We're at University of Texas, San Antonio on our Gen Z, A Generation at War, Texas edition. At UTSA, I feel as if we might be a generation at war. It's interesting to see the different dynamics of every location. Yesterday we were at UT where the majority of people were progressive and liberal and open-minded. Today there's been more of a mix where a lot of people might be closed-minded. You know, they might perpetuate racism, they might not think police violence is real, they might hate trans people. That makes me feel as if we actually might be a little bit more divided than we are. I think as a generation, we have to look at the principles that we're standing on. What do we actually believe? And do we believe something out of hate? Or do we believe something because it's truly true? As a generation, I think we have to get back to having principles that are consistent and based. One of the most common difficulties that I've seen on this trip, and especially here at UTSA, is the contradiction of principles. You cannot claim to believe something if that principle is going to change on every single issue. If your principle is that we shouldn't expose children to heteronormativity nor queerness, then we shouldn't expose them to anything. Not just not exposing them to queerness. The principle does not match. On this current stop, UTSA, Gen Z Generation at War, I am a little worried. I'm worried because I think more people are empowered by Donald Trump's oppressive nature. I'm a little worried because I think Donald Trump is going to do a lot more harm than he will do good. And I think regardless of any economical benefit that Donald Trump could potentially provide, the division and the hate that he will perpetuate will outweigh every other person, benefit, or president than we've ever seen. In America specifically. People are as inclusive as their education. If your education is exclusive, you will be exclusive. Ignorance runs rampant when there's a lack of education. As a generation, we need education. We need to push better education, not more restrictive education. Imagine an America that truly understands our history regarding race, gender, and every other topic. Imagine a generation that is no longer blinded by this empirical idea of what the United States is, the American dream. Imagine if we're a generation where we truly understand what's happened so that we can move forward, truly unified, progressed, and including anybody who has the opportunity. Imagine if we're a nation that actually believes in meritocracy, that if you deserve it, then you get it. Because currently, we're not. Because there's a lot of factors that might stop you that have nothing to do with your merit.